Hi everybody and welcome to the new episode of the Endless Celts podcast. This is our Scottish Cup special. Much like the Glasgow Derby extravaganza, we have all six of us on tonight. So we've got John, William, Anthony, Ross and Francis. How are you all?
Hi,
Good,
good,
mate.
mate.
All good.
Yep, good.
No worries. All ready to go, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No problem at all. So the first thing we're going to do is just look ahead to the game, the Glasgow Derby game on Sunday, which is in the Scottish Cup. Now, what we've seen the previous game for Livingston, we won 6-0. Quite convincingly, it was a good performance all round. Some great play, some great combination play. But looking at the Scottish Cup, Anthony, I'll come to you first. In regards to if we win this will be our fifth Scottish Cup in a row, which would be a fantastic achievement. Are you confident in this game, Anthony?
I'm as confident as I'm going to be considering the form that we've been in on the run up to the game. We've not played great, even after Neil's resignation, but we're slowly turning the corner a wee bit. I thought we played well against Livingston, so I think we're in as good a shape as we possibly can be to go. I think Rangers, listen, they're obviously going to have the home advantage, and we've got to be wary of that. But yeah, I'm as confident as I possibly can be that we can get a result.
Yeah, I think you make a great point in terms of turning the corner. Obviously, when Neil Lennon left and Kennedy took interim charge, it was kind of the same for the rest of the games. And Livingston has been probably the main marker that's been laid, winning 6-0. But Francis, what do you think in regards to the way Celtic played that game on the weekend against Livingston? Do you think we're looking too much into it, as in maybe Livingston weren't quite at their best? We've seen them cause us problems previously, but do you think it's a bit of false confidence?
I don't think it's false confidence. I mean, I appreciate it as only Livingston and we were at home, but I think, not to put a lot on James Ford, I think he was a big difference, just the fact that he comes back into it and stuff. But the performance has got to give the players a boost going into it. You can only, it's all cliche, you can only beat what's in front of you. And yeah, like Anthony said, we hadn't been great since Lennon had left, but the Livingston performance was, you've got to call it for what it is. It was a really good performance. We were clinical for once this season, and yeah, I think just it's got to give the players a boost, just the way they played and boys scoring that. So I'm fairly confident going into the game, just simply because of the Livingston, not simply because of it, but because the Livingston game has to give you confidence. And then the previous games against Rangers this season, apart from the first one at Ibrox, we've played fairly well, especially the previous game at Ibrox. We did actually turn in a decent performance for 60 minutes until they sending off, which changed it. So I'm fairly confident going into the game. More confident than I have been this season.
Yeah, I think you make a great point. James Forrest he's been a revelation since he's come back. I mean, he's made such a difference. I noticed on the weekend as well, I touched upon it with Amy and John on our previous podcast. He seems, I know he's had it, but his game intelligence at the minute seems to be on top. He's popping up on the left, in the centre, and then the right as well. So he's kind of across all bases. William, in terms of the players themselves, like the James Forrest, like the Edward and Moyle Lucy, he's turned some fantastic performances in as well. It's key that they're on top of their game, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I tend to disagree slightly with the guys. I think there has been a difference since Kennedy's taken over. I think we're more solid defensively. I think we've only conceded one goal since he's came in against Rangers, and we've obviously created however many 100 chances it is in the 4 games or whatever. And I think in the 2 or 3 games that we didn't pick up all 3 points, if we take 1 or 2 of the chances and we win the games, we're sitting having a totally different conversation right now. I think there's been a massive improvement, and I'm fairly confident about the game on Sunday.
I get what you mean about improvement. I have to disagree with yourself, William. I think this has been coming for me all season, where Celtic have kind of had to click in the gear. We've seen it in the Derby game in January that Francis talked about. We were the dominant side up until the sending off, and we could have scored 3 or 4 in the first half especially. But there's not much difference for me. I think he's playing the same way. Yes, he's reverted back to the 4-2-3-1 more recently in the Livingston game. It kind of switches between the diamond and that formation. But are you warming to the fact that Kennedy might be a contender for the job, or is that just the opinion of yourself?
No, not at all. No, I don't. For me, Kennedy shouldn't be the one that's in charge next year. But I do see improvement in the team. Like I say, I think we're more solid defensively. We've only conceded 1 goal, and I think the team looks like it's been given a bit of a boost with the transition play, the movements a lot better. There is improvement, but I'm not saying that Kennedy's the man to take us forward in the long term. I feel more comfortable with the team now than I did 6 weeks ago. I think we're playing a lot better. Like I say, many chances created in all games, and the games that we didn't win, we should have won, clearly. We put a few of the chances away, and I think we're having a different conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. Yes, there has been improvement in terms of combination play, passing. The passing seems a lot more crisp. But Ross, do you share what William's saying? Have you seen the improvement? But me personally, I think it's been, apart from the Livingston game, I mean, the first couple of games, Kenny was in charge. There was a draw in there as well. So it's not been all gung-ho as people are saying at the moment. I know we had something like 92 shots in 2 games and we scored 3 against Falkirk and stuff. But, I mean, for me, the improvement should be far, far, far more than it is already. We should be operating on a different level. Are you of the opinion of what William's saying, Ross?
I tend to agree with William a bit. I would say that, like, in the first couple of games, like Kennedy took over, I don't think you were going to see a drastic change. He didn't change too much, but I think in the last maybe 2 games, his message, if you like, is starting to get over a wee bit better. They're playing with a lot more pace, but I mean, it's no coincidence that they're playing with a lot more pace and a lot more penetrating since Forrest has came back. It's no coincidence, but I would agree with William that there is improvements there now, and as he said, if we take our chances in the previous games, like say against Rangers, Dundee United, for instance, just poor finishing. With clear chances against Dundee United, and just it was poor finishing that stopped us from winning that game comfortably. And as Willie touched on as well, we've only conceded, was it 1 goal in that time? So there's obviously a marked improvement defensively. As regards set pieces and stuff like that, I don't think we look as vulnerable. But I mean, time will tell. The Mora will probably put under more pressure, the Mora, than we have been in the previous games that Kennedy's took charge of. So I think we'll have to be on our A game as regards set pieces and stuff, because we've been caught out previously against Rangers this season with set pieces as well as other teams. But again, I don't think Kennedy, I've said it previously, I don't think Kennedy's the man to take us forward next season, but he's certainly doing an okay job of things at the moment, and the message for me is getting across slowly but surely.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that pops up in my mind, I just wonder where these solutions were during the season. We always said Kennedy for me is guilty by association with the catastrophe that we've seen this season, and maybe there is a role for him at Celtic Park, but I don't think it should be the manager's role. And granted, the 6-0 win, but I kind of, for me anyway, it kind of points to how the things we're celebrating. It should be a routine victory against Livingston when we're beating them 6-0. It shouldn't be something to be like, wow, we're really on form and we're gonna go on a run. I don't know yourself, John, here, but a point I want to make to yourself as well. We've seen Elyounoussi come into form. Eddie has been up and down. He's too inconsistent. But where's the likes of Elyounoussi been consistently? We know he's our second top goal scorer, and we talked about him a wee bit on the Tuesday's podcast. But if these guys let Celtic down as well this season, for me personally, they definitely have.
I would disagree with that, in that I don't think Elyounoussi has had enough starts this year. A lot of his appearances have come really off the bench, and the fact that, and I've touched on this previous, the fact that he's our second top goal scorer with limited starts tells you a lot about the type of player he is. I think one of the issues that we faced under Lennon and initially under Kennedy, just to touch on what the boys were saying, is they were played out of position sometimes, and I don't think tactically Kennedy was at the start of his reign anyway was setting the team up right. But obviously with Forrest's return, we've been able to revert back to the 4-2-3-1, and utilise that width. And it's perfect because knew you've got a natural left and right sided player on the park, and you can utilise them the best way possible. So they're playing in their more natural positions, and I think that's one of the things we've been missing. And I touched on that previously as well. So I don't think Elyounoussi specifically is one of the ones that's let us down, because he's been proficient in his scoring, like I said, with limited starts. You could say that a lot of other players throughout the team, their heads have dropped definitely. We know how good they are. We've seen in previous seasons how good they can be. Whether or not that comes down to a coaching issue, an attitude issue, I'm not sure, but I think you could definitely, as Anthony says, you could see against Livingston with the return of Forrest that their heat seemed to be lifted a bit, and we're able to set up tactically a little bit better to suit the players that we've got available, and I think we've definitely turned the corner in that respect.
Yeah, and another thing as well, Anthony, John, you make some fantastic points. I think as well, I'm not kind of necessarily singling out Elyounoussi, but I think Edwards let us down this season, and he's our top goal scorer. I think he's been too inconsistent. The thing I'm pointing to is consistency within the team, and James Forrest, for me, coming back has made a big difference with that. But what I want to say to you, Anthony, do you not think with James Forrest coming back and giving us that boost, do you not think it just shows how unprepared Celtic went into this season, not signing a replacement for Forrest, or at least competition? I just think it points to a wee bit of lack of planning there.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's sort of been a lack of a plan B, so to speak, on so many different, areas at Celtic on and off the park for me. Listen, it's an age-old thing, if one of your best players gets injured, there's going to be an obvious shortfall, and when he comes back, there's obviously going to be hopefully an uplift in fortunes as well. James Forrest would improve most football sides. He brings a lot more back. What I've noticed, there's a lot more balance in the team the last couple of weeks, and it's because there is a sort of outball, if you were, with James Forrest. You guys were talking about it on the other podcast the other night about it was very tippy-tappy stuff around the 18-yard box, no penetration, and that's because I would argue that, and that is where your point's absolutely spot on, Stephen. There's no really a substitute for Forrest, or there's no one that can really fill in. You can maybe say, yeah, Mikey Johnston's a bit versatile, but he's not in James Forrest's league. Let's be honest. James Forrest,
And he's always injured too.
and he's very injury prone, yeah. And I just feel that having him back in the team, and he's prone to his poor games like a lot of the players are, but I just think you can see the difference in the other guys on the park, knowing that there's someone out wide that they can trust to have an effect on the game, is paying off. I hope that the injury picked up last Saturday isn't too bad, and that he will be available for Sunday, because he would be a massive boost if he's available.
Yeah, I mean, as well, if you look at the likes of Cal McGregor in there, they seem to be a wee bit more going forward, a wee bit more adventurous, and then you've got Turnbull. Ross, what about yourself? I think I seen in the weekend, I don't know if a lot of people seen it, but there was a clip. I know the streams were quite bad, but I managed to see this clip. The three coaches, it was McManus, Kennedy and Gavin Strachan. Now, we all know my opinions on Gavin Strachan especially, but they were talking to the players, and they seemed engaged. They seemed to be listening to what they were saying. Is that another thing that was missing this whole season? That communication does seem to be lost from manager to team, because we've seen Cal McGregor come out before in one of the games and say they didn't know what they're actually doing on the pitch in terms of the game plan.
Well, I mean, I never actually seen that, but I heard you talking about it the other night. So it's difficult for me to comment, but I mean, as regards the rest of the season, there has been a disconnect for the coaching staff and getting a message onto the pitch, and you can you've seen it all season. Everybody's watched enough football to know that there was discontent there, and right down to, I think, probably Lennon and Kennedy had a fallout, because Kennedy, I know he's like in the manager's role now, and he will be buoyed by that, but he looks a different character altogether on the touchline. He done some interviews when Lennon was the manager, but he just looks a completely different character. I think probably there could be a place for Kennedy in the coaching staff still, but I think I'm in the same boat as you as regards Gavin Strachan. He can go any time he wants, and he can pack his laptop up into its wee case and take it with him for all I care, frankly. But there's definitely there's definitely a message getting to the players, like I've said, and there's more of a connect between the players and the staff now than there was when Lennon was there. And it's no disrespect to Lennon, he just obviously had lost. Something's happened. You'll never know fully what it was, but we've all seen enough football to know that there was disconnect there between the players and him, and it was sad to see, but it's just the way it goes in football sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And I say that because people on this podcast now think 100% right is my catchphrase. But yeah, so we've seen as well good news coming out of Celtic Football Club for once. Stephen Welsh has signed a new 4-year contract, which I think is fantastic. I think all us guys on this podcast kind of want the youth to progress at Celtic and get their chance. What will you think about that news, Francis? For me, I think it's a fantastic bit of business to tie him down because he's been a bright spark this season. And yes, we've always alluded to he got his chance by a fluke, but he's definitely grabbed that, hasn't he?
Oh, 100%. He's, like you say, got out of luck, but sometimes that's how some players get their chance. You've got to just be ready, and he clearly was. He had some shaky starts at the game against Rangers at Parkhead and stuff, but he was a young lad. But yeah, totally. I think it's a great move for Celtic. It will hopefully give the boy confidence going forward. That they know that he's not. Well, he's obviously in out of necessity, to be fair, but the fact that they've gave him a contract, hopefully it gives him a confidence to say, look, we actually believe in you and we're going to look at you for the future going forward and stuff. So I think it's a great move for Celtic, and like I say, it's a shining light on the season, and it'll be nice for the fans to see that we're putting a wee bit of faith in some of the youth and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difference from youth leaving us to go to the likes of Bayern Munich, tying someone down on a long contract's quite decent. I know he's 21 now, so he's not really a younger player, so to speak, but he's a homegrown boy, which is great to see. John, I want to come to you about that. So we've seen as well, Yogi John Hughes coming out and saying about Leo Hjelde, I think that's the way I pronounce it, is going to be the next Virgil van Dijk. Now that's some pressure to put in a young boy at 17 years old, but as I said on our Twitter post, by all accounts, he is making a good impression. The likes of him and Welsh, are they the future of Celtic, or would you be not? Would you want a more experienced defender coming in to fill that void next season?
I think the defence is still one area we need to strengthen. And I mean, in all fairness to Welsh, like you said, he's come in, he's took his chance, and he's been fantastic. But it's been out of necessity. And what happens when Julian's back? I've seen that he seems to be back in training as part of his injury rehab, so he's ahead of schedule in terms of his return. When you've got the likes of him back, if we hold on to Ayer, then obviously you suspect that maybe Welsh will move to a position on the bench. So I mean, I think it's absolutely fantastic that we're giving the youth a chance and we're signing them on long-term deals and putting a bit of faith in them and letting them know that we definitely see something in them. Welsh has definitely warranted his contract with the performance he's put in since he came in. But it's a difficult one because I mean, Welsh has done it. He's came in and he's played well. But what's his position going to be, or how is he going to take it if he's reserved to the bench once Julian's back? We don't know what the situation with Ayer is yet. If we keep him, I suspect that Julian and Ayer would be our starting centre backs. But if Ayer leaves, then you've got potential Julian and Welsh, and then that's pretty much it. So I think defensively, it's still an area we need to strengthen. So I think we need to sign somebody. In regards to Yogi's comments about that for Hjelde, that's an awfully big statement to make. I mean, I've heard that he's a fantastic young player. He's got the size, the strength, and everything else, and he's definitely somebody who could potentially be a star. But we need to remember where he's playing at the minute, and comparing him to somebody who is essentially the greatest defender in the world at the minute is certainly a massive claim. I don't think he's there yet, but there's certainly no reason that the boy can't be a star for Celtic. But again, it comes down to we need to give these guys a chance, and if they continue to develop, then absolutely, I don't see why these guys can't go on and become those type of players.
I mean, yeah, I think as well, you're right when you say if we're left with Ayer and Julian, then you do need to strengthen. I mean, you can't rely on the likes of Leo Hilda coming back from Ross County to fill that void. I know maybe he could be dipped in and out next season or sent on again like Ayer was to Kilmarnock. I think that really gave him a good feel of what the Scottish Premier League's like. And you look at him now, he's a fantastic defender. But coming to yourself, Anthony, in regards to Yogi's comments, was that something you thought? I mean, I've seen other players. You've seen the likes of Islam Farouz coming for his Celtic. He was compared to all sorts of players, and you can go through a whole list of them. But do you think them type of comments sometimes could be too much pressure, especially at 17 years old?
I absolutely do. Yeah, I thought it was a very silly and ill-thought comment to come away with, Stephen. Listen, it's great to hear if the young lad's settling in well and he's progressing. But you can big up and praise youth without putting needless pressure on them. I would say, comparing, as John says, trying to name dropping the world's greatest centre half into the conversation. I don't know what he's maybe just. I mean, Yogi Hughes is known for those kind of comments. I don't know what he was trying to sort of achieve with them. I just thought, by all means, say he's dedicated, he's professional, he's got every opportunity to go a long way in the game. I could write you the script now, but name dropping Virgil van Dijk into the conversation is the spin-off series. The interview you done with young McNally the other day. He admitted himself. He says he took on a lot of these social media comments, and he sort of got distracted around that time where what he should have been really doing is focusing on his football. So getting that kind of those sort of comments made by a guy that's looking after you essentially until he's back at Celtic, I just thought it was very, very silly. And it's not anything John Hughes is going to be responsible for long term. It's going to be up to the young guy himself to sort of apply himself. But I just think there's ways of going about it, and that was certainly not the way to do it.
Yeah, I think he's made also comments in regards to Ryan Christie could go on to a top club, and obviously Celtic are a top club, and I think he was meaning down in England, like the top four, and that's probably led to Ryan Christie getting a massive head, as I always say. But if we look,
head's massive.
Right, aye. If we look at the youth, Ross, and we do talk about it a lot, but it's a very important subject. It's close to me, and I like hearing about it as well. But if we look at the youth and the new management team coming in, right, and we're all expecting it to be Eddie Howe or Eddie now or Eddie When, whenever it may be. But it's like going forward, the youth policy, as Patrick McNally said in the interview as well, it needs to be set in stone what they're going to be doing from the youth right to the first team, isn't it? It's the same formation, the same training. Surely that's the way forward for Celtic in the future.
Aye, well, I suppose you could say it is. Aye, you want to get the younger players playing the same way as the team, the first team, if you like, so that when they do go, or when they do get their chance, if they get their chance, they know the formation and all that, and the way it works. But I mean, it's very difficult to do that, I would say, because there's going to be different types of players and a different style of game that their game is set up for. Like guys in the youth, they're not going to be ready to play the exact style of football that the first team play, because they're a different team. That's like saying, like, I know it's a bit wild, but it's like saying that Celtic could play the way that, or they should have Celtic playing the way that Barcelona play, or when they had Xavi and stuff. But they've not got the players to do that. And if the youth team have got players that are no set up to play, or their game isn't suited to play the exact same way as the first team, then do they compromise what their game is, what their stronger points are, just so that they're ready to go into a team that like the first team? I don't know. It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in. I don't think that's what Stephen's meaning, Ross. It's like, I think he's meaning however the Celtic team play the first team, get the reserves and under 21s and that playing kind of that way. We're not expecting it to be Barcelona and play like how Barcelona play, but
I'm
The
not really-
Barcelona youth setup is built on all that tiki-taki football.
Aye,
So
Right
when
from
it gets
the-
to the first team,
Right from yeah.
so I think
I'm-
it's just away football. It's
even
no,
say-
we're not expecting Xavi and Iniestas and that.
Aye, but you're no listening to me. That's not what I'm saying. I understood what Stephen was saying, but I was just using an example of the Celtic first team. Like, our players are no geared up to play that style of football. So maybe the younger team, like the guys in that team, their game's no geared up to play like the same style of football as, because it's a team game at the end of the day.
Aye.
Maybe 11 players that play for the youth team, their game will not be the exact same. Like, all their players will not be the exact same game that's suited to each individual as what it is in the first team. So it's very difficult. They ask the youth team to go out and maybe start losing games because they're trying to play the same way as the first team, but they're no geared up for that, if you know what I mean.
I think it's just
Yeah,
trying to get a little bit of philosophy, try to get that philosophy into it,
aye.
and just how they play.
I would agree with
It's
that.
a
See,
process.
I was going to say there as well, Ross. I understand what you're saying, but
Aye,
I think for the first team, obviously, you want a manager in place who's going to have the first team playing a familiar tactical style, so there's familiarity throughout the squad, and playing a certain type of football, and that needs to be top to bottom right through the club, or through their development as well, making sure that even for the youngest stages, that's drilled into them. This is the way the tap team play, and they all should be training together. They shouldn't be segregated in any way. Like your younger boys, who are the ones that are most likely to come through and get a chance in the first team, they should be training with the first team constantly and on a consistent basis. But definitely, from a tactical standpoint, in terms of formation and things like that, that should be drilled through the club top to bottom.
Aye, I mean,
Yeah.
I totally hear what you're saying there, but like if Celtic have got, like the first team have got, for talking's sake, 2 ball playing centre halves, and the youth team have got 2 ball winners, aerial guys, then you can't expect the guys, when their game isn't ball playing centre half, to try and
But
play.
that'll be part of their development, right?
aye.
For a younger age, you can mould these guys. So if your tactics set up to accommodate 2 sort of ball playing centre halves, in that case, then right through all the youth levels, if you're bringing these guys up and you're developing them, that's you teach those things. You get them playing in a similar style. Maybe they'll not
But
grasp
sometimes
everything
guys
perfectly,
can't
but
keep up. Sometimes guys are just defenders, but they're no footballers, if you know what I mean. I know they types of players are few and far between now. By the way, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just like giving it another like side of the argument, if you like.
What I'm saying, Ross, as well is
advocate.
what I'm saying as well, John and William, you've got it spot on. If you look at the Barcelona academy structure, right from
that
their
was
9 years
Francis,
old,
by the way. Sorry.
Francis, sorry. So right from the academy structure, they've got a set philosophy. They know that they're going to be playing this style of football, and if you coach as young as 9, I'm pretty sure them ball winners can be turned into ball players as well. So I get what you mean. Some players can be uncoachable, but then you have to spot that early. If they're not coachable, then it's kind of a cutthroat business, and you have to let some players go, and then you move on and recruit from there. Now, I know we said at the start of the show we're looking ahead to the Scottish Cup game, and yes, we are. I mean, this is all going to tie into it, and I think it's important to talk about the youth, which brings me on to another point. I'm not going off on a tangent here or anything, but we've seen the Celtic cult thing being like an idea floated around the bottom leagues and stuff, and I think they're having a vote soon, or maybe the vote's been agreed but not released yet. Anthony, what's your opinion on the Celtic Colts? Do you think that would be a great idea going forward?
No, I don't, and I don't think the vote's going to go through. I think the way that you'll notice when it was getting panned about at the start, it was very much in the media. It was very much a Rangers idea, and it was absolutely a fantastic. It was going to trailblaze Scottish football, but now that it's looking like it's not going to go through, it's suddenly become an old firm idea. It's a bit like Andy Murray in Wimbledon, isn't it? Any time he wins, he's British. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's just, I must admit, I'm not in favour of it. The one thing that I can maybe get on board with, and it's not actually even anything to do with Celtic per se, is the fact that these lower league clubs might get a few more punters through the gates which is great. Certainly in the post-COVID world, would be great for hopefully them keeping the lights on. In terms of developing Celtic youth players, I really don't see any benefit to us in it at all. I know Real Madrid and Barcelona have a sort of similar thing in Spain, but I think nobody's arguing. I would absolutely agree that there has to be a lot of reform at youth level, etc. But I really don't see what putting our most promising young players up against part-time postmen and stuff like that is going to do to develop them. I think what the next gen series, which sort of seems to have fallen by the wayside, and a proper reserve league and a proper pathway into sort of first team opportunities is a far more viable way of going about it. As I say, I don't want to see any club go to the wall, but and again, that's one of the other things I don't like about it. We're almost trying to bribe clubs into accepting this, and chairman and lower league clubs are going to stick their heels into it because they can see that effectively it's only going to benefit two clubs in the whole of Scotland. And I obviously want to see the best young talent shine at Celtic, but I also don't want the whole of Scottish football to be ran to for the benefit of two clubs. I can see little pockets of good ideas or good thoughts with the idea, but the overall project, it's almost like a smaller version of Project Big Picture down in England. It's a non-starter for me, but by going by what I've seen so far, it looks like the vote isn't going to go through. So, yeah. But there has to be a big reform, but yeah. I don't think the Colt idea is the way forward.
I mean, for me, I have to disagree with you, to be honest with you, Anthony. I think it could benefit both parties in terms of leagues and clubs, and also in terms of attendances. There'll be Celtic fans going to these games, and also Rangers fans, and they'll bump up their finances in lower leagues. And it's not really for me about who they're playing against and what opposition and what standard they're at. It's about getting competitive football for these young players, because they get to a certain level at Celtic Football Club and there's nothing apart from the first team. And then if they don't get in the first team, then they're leaving, join the likes of Bayern Munich, who have a clear pathway, the likes of Manchester City, Brighton, Angelini, the goalkeeper, apparently going there on trial. So we need something to entice these players to say. Francis, what's your... I know you suggested a reserve league, but that reserve league got scrapped, and I personally don't think it should have been scrapped. We've seen the likes of McGeady, Sean Maloney, all them players come through that system, and it didn't do them no harm. Surely the way forward is to get some competitive football for the youth academy in terms of the reserve team. Is that your opinion, Francis? Or are you on the Anthony boat?
No, to be fair, I've been on record as saying I'm on your boat. But Anthony does raise really good points about it. Like the next gen thing, and that was a good thing, and because we're playing against elite sort of teams in their youth setup. But I just think maybe, I know you shouldn't. That is going to be benefiting Celtic and Rangers long term, but it's a business at the end of the day, and I suppose the guys at Celtic and Rangers, if they're not doing their job right, they should be doing what's best for Celtic and Rangers. I'm with you. I just think we need our youth playing and getting, at least if they're getting some sort of competitive football, it might entice them to stay, but it's maybe just a short-term plan, because I do think Anthony makes good points on the standard we're going to be playing against isn't going to be great. So yeah, I think the idea is good, but maybe the more I think about it and stuff, and like what Anthony said, I think you maybe need tweak it a wee bit or something, but I don't know how you would do that when the deal is just playing the lower leagues.
Yeah. See, when you're talking about like a reserve league and stuff like that, guys, so I know there's a certain standard we're talking about here, but you telling me like if St Mirren reserves got put into League 2, you're going to walk that league? I'm not so sure there's a massive difference between St Mirren reserves team and a team in that lower league. For me, I agree with the next gen stuff and how they like. I know you talked to McNally in another podcast, and he talked about going away in the European games and that. Yeah, that's massive. But you can't tell me that St Mirren reserves are better than like Peterhead or whatever, whoever's in the League 2. And it's exposure, and it's competitive football, and it's fans coming to games. So for me, I see positives. I know there is a lot of negatives too, But from the competitive side of things, I don't see how it's going to be any less competitive than it would be in a reserve league.
Yeah. I would agree with that, actually.
I
William.
know,
And
I
I
was
think,
kind of getting that.
So would I.
see, because you look at if granted, like Anthony made some good points, it only really benefits Celtic and Rangers in that case. But you're saying, like you said, William made a fantastic point. The level that we're playing against in the reserve league isn't going to be much greater than League Two. And if our youths, both Celtic and Rangers, are as talented as we believe they are, then it's a huge step up in competition for the lower league teams, and that can only help their development. And like you say, it's for a financial aspect as well. It's definitely a positive. But I agree there definitely needs to be some sort of reform in the next gen idea. Maybe even look at like a European Youth League or something like that, and let all the top teams in these countries, their youth teams, all play in a league together, because that benefits everybody in that case.
That would be more the sort of thing that I would, if I was a chairman, I would probably vote for something like that you suggest there, John. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that for me that opens a whole different can of worms in terms of Atlantic leagues, continental leagues. Then you have the likes of Celtic will be looking to join these leagues. And personally, my opinion is, and on that, I'm not going to get into it, but I think Celtic do need to get out of the Scottish Premier League to grow as a club. We all know we're a Scottish club, but you look down south, there's Welsh clubs playing in this league, and we always seem to get rejected. I don't know why, but I think for the future,
I'll tell
anyway,
you why, because they're scared. It's fear. You let Celtic, a club like Celtic, and I hate to say it, but Rangers as well, right? Just due to their size, into the English leagues. Like even if you start them in the lower leagues, just due to the size and the draw and the money that's involved, we're already making more money in the English lower leagues than we are up here, right? You're attracting better players right off the bat, and the fear is that you're going to end up then with two clubs, non-English clubs, because of the size and the stature that they've got, winning the league. And I mean, it's all right back in the day when they let Cardiff and Swansea and that, and they're tiny clubs, and I don't think they'd ever thought, well, they've no chance of ever winning the English Premier League. But Celtic and Rangers actually can compete, and they've got the fan base, they've got the size, they've got the reputation to be able to do that, and that's what they don't like. And I've said it from the start, and they're shiting themselves.
Yeah. And I knew that would trigger somebody at least, and John rightly got on that. But
I think everybody echoed that,
but I don't want to go down. I don't want to go down that route on the podcast. We all know our feelings, and that I think it's perfectly clear. But if we move on, I'm going to move on to the weekend's game. We spoke about the youth there, so this ties into it. And I'm going to do something different. We usually leave the lineup predictions till the end, but we're going to do them now, mainly because we've got another segment coming up that it ties into. So I'll go to you, John, first. What have you gone for in terms of your lineup?
So I'm assuming, I suspect it's going to be largely the same as it was against Livingston. We'll set up 4-2-3-1. I suspect Bain's going to start. Taylor on the left. Ayer, Welsh, Kenny. Then McGregor, Brown in the middle of the park, and then Elyounoussi, Turnbull, Forrest, and Eddie.
No problem. And what about yourself, Francis? What we're going for?
I've almost man for man as John. I've went Bain, Kenny, Welsh, Ayer. I've actually went Laxalt at left back because he seems to play decent against Rangers. He always seems to occupy their sort of right side of the park and that. So if Kenny put Laxalt in more for his energy back and forward, then I've went with I think he'll play with the diamond with Brown at the sort of bottom of it, with Turnbull at the tip, then McGregor and Forrest either side, and Moy, Elyounoussi and Eddie up top. I just think he'll maybe play the diamond because we're a wee bit used to it, but then it gives you that scope to go to the 4-2-3-1 without actually making a substitution, if you like.
Yeah, so there's flexibility in that as well.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. What about yourself, William?
Yeah, exact same lineup as against Livingston. Hopefully Forrest is fitting well. I've not read anything otherwise, so it makes me think that it's he should be good to go. So yeah, the exact same team: Bain, Kenny, Ayer, Welsh, Taylor, Brown and Calmack in midfield, with Turnbull at number 10, and Forrest, Moy, Elyounoussi and Eddie as the front three. I think Kennedy's talked about it and touched on it himself. Ryan's touched on it there. He likes playing that with that system because he can change it and he can put the diamond in midfield as well. So I think that's our strongest team at the moment, and I think that's what I'll go with.
Yeah. When I asked you that question, William, and you just went, "Yeah," I thought that was it. I thought you were just going to leave me hanging. I thought you were going to leave me hanging there. So thanks for adding on to that. What about yourself, Anthony? What have you gone for?
I've literally went for same as Wally, same team as last week, mate. I think that was a team that was energetic. It had a lot of sort of free flowing stuff about it. I would not change anything on the back of a 6-0 win. Okay, the opposition was Livingston, but yep, that side will be full and raring to go, and I just think let them loose on the Rangers.
Yep, I think that's what we're all hoping for, isn't it? Just to get a good victory anyway. What about yourself, Ross?
Aye, exactly the same. Back four, Kenny Welsh, Ayer Taylor, and I've got Forrest and Elyounoussi either side, Brown and McGregor, with Turnbull just in front of them and Edward up top. Aye, no changes. It's probably, I would say it's our strongest 11 available, and I just pray that Forrest is going to be ready to go. Like Willie says, I've not heard anything different, so I think they were going to do a late fitness test on them. That's the only thing I've heard. They were going to fitness test tomorrow, maybe. But I mean, I really hope he is going to be fit. But if he isn't, it would epitomise our whole season to a T. But just if he's fit, I think we go and win that game tomorrow with that team. Yeah,
no, you're 100% right, and it's not tomorrow; it's Sunday.
Aye.
I just wasn't sure if this was going out Saturday.
Because I've been on holiday this week, I don't know what day it is.
The reason why we've done the lineup predictions quite early on in the show is because we're going to do an old-fashioned key battle segment. So in terms of key players, where the battles are going to be on the pitch, and to start us off, I'm going to go to William first. Where do you think the first key battle is going to be on the pitch?
For me, it's the front three. I think if the front three play like they did against Livingston, I thought the movement, the transition, if they play the same way they did, and we defend set pieces well, I think they're the two key battles. So if the front three for me play like they did on Saturday there against Livingston, I think there's definitely goals in us. I mean, they've got. I know Rangers like to push their full-backs up, so if we have got the width in Forrest and Elyounoussi, I think that's something we need to capitalise on. And Eddie needs to turn up. I know you've talked about it in the last podcast, Stephen. I totally agree with you. I think he's been so lackadaisical, and I know that's his style. He's like that Berbatov, where he looks like he's not interested, but I think he's one of these, and he needs fans to feed off, but he needs to just hit the ground running, and if he turns up and the other two do as well, I think that's the biggest key battle. Other than set pieces, I mean, I'm trying to think back all the previous games, and I think every game that we've played Rangers this year, every goal they've scored's come from a set piece, if I'm not wrong. So
yeah,
if we sort that out and the front three do their business, then I can only see one winner.
Yeah. For me anyway, coming at it from a different angle here anyway, I'll go to you, Anthony, for this. So I've got a key battle, quite interesting. Kenny up against Kent. So two namesakes, obviously Kenny and Kent different, but you know what I mean? And then you've got Welsh and Alfredo, and then Laxalt potentially against Hadji, depending on the way they line up. But is that key as well? Defensively, we need to be on point, as William rightly said. Both set pieces and kind of holding them out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Kent is their most explosive player, isn't he? I mean, he can sort of turn, make something out of nothing. It's absolutely important that Kenny sort of really neutralises his threat. But yeah, you're absolutely spot on, Stephen. Right across the back, they've got to be switched on, and that's exactly what we haven't been, especially at set pieces this season. It's been our Achilles heel. We need to be switched on for first minute to last. Morelos having that sort of monkey off his back a bit with the whole scoring against Celtic. I hope that a lot of the sort of circus around that will hopefully go now, and there's not going to be this, am I going to be the first centre half or goalkeeper to sort of make the mistake that allows Morelos to score his first goal? He scored it now, and that's it. And it was a game that ended up, kind of fizzling out into a draw. All these guys need to know that we're about to go into the biggest game of our season now, and that can't be sort of underplayed. Every single one of them need to be switched on. I would say the key battle area is the pitch. Every single one of them need to turn up, because we have to build on Ibrox, and we need to build on the last game where we got the draw, where we were by far and away the dominant team, but we were lackadaisical at the back when we needed to be switched on. And up front, we had so many chances and we were trying to walk it into the net. If you get and I hope the 3 against Falkirk and the 6 against Livingston is something we can build on, that a wee bit sharper in front of goal. We will get chances in the game, but you're going up against, I'm sorry to say, the best goalkeeper in Scotland. So when you do get those chances, you need to be clinical.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to jump in, Stephen. Sorry, mate. See, when you're talking about, and Tony rightly pointed out there, Kent's their most explosive player, and he can turn the game. I actually think Kenny's a good matchup against him. He's not like we've had Frimpong in the past, who was fantastic bombing up the wing, getting forward. Kenny's not that type of player. He's more defensively sound. I think he's a good matchup against him, as is Taylor on the other side. Again, Laxalt's a bit more gung-ho and he's got more energy going forward, but Taylor, for me, is defensive, much more sound defensively. So in the wing-back areas, if we play them, I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Just to jump in, see an interesting stat about Kenny. Do you know when he was on loan to Shaquille or whatever? Schalke, Shaquille. What am I talking about? in the Bundesliga. Kingsley Coman for Bayern Munich came up against him, I think it was 2 or 3 times, and never once dribbled past him. I think that's quite an interesting stat. It just shows that he's quite sound defensively, but I've been on record before saying he's the most boring player I've ever seen. And I kind of stick to that. I mean, for me as well, coming to you, John, I've got a key battle down here for myself, which would be Forest against Barisic, because we know, and yes, I'm coming at this impartially as well, don't want it to be through green tinted glasses, but Barisic at the moment is probably the best left back in Scotland, and he's good sound defensively. I mean, they've got a good defence, but do you think that's a key one there as well, Forest up against him, John?
Absolutely. I mean, our wide, like I said, hopefully we set up the same as we did against Livingston, and we utilise that width. I fully expect Forest and Barisic to be one of the most important battles, because I suspect we'll see a lot of outballs out on the right side with Forest there. But I'm more than confident that Forest has it in him to get by him. He's got the pace. He's able to turn his man as well, so he can cut inside. And breaking their lines as well is going to be absolutely huge. And I don't know who they're going to be starting on the right, whether it's Patterson or Balogun or whatever, but we've seen previously as well.
Injured.
Is he?
Patterson.
But again, I fully expect if Moy and Taylor can link up well out on the left, then I think we'll have a lot of opportunities down the left as well, because I mean, I don't know too much about the boy Patterson, but I don't think he's all that. And I think there's more than enough about Elyounoussi to turn them inside out and get him fits. So I suspect the width, the left and right.
You talk about Cafu?
This is what I'm saying. I don't know nothing about him, but
that same suspension might stop him being Cafu.
Aye. Sake, man, eh? Like, if he got a hamstring injury, he would boot for 6 games. That would have ended his career. So that, what he said, was absolute. For one of your cash.
I personally thought his comment was quite, I mean, he said about Kennedy saying that, and he was like, I would be afraid if good players were playing against my team too. Like, come on to hell, the Patterson kids only play about 2 games for Rangers. But, I mean, if you look at it as well, no one's actually touched upon the midfield battle. I'll go to you, Ross, for this. For me personally, I think it's quite important that Brown has a good game, and he's usually in the round Davis and Kamara. That's the type of players he'd probably be up against. But do you think the midfield? I mean, most Glasgow Derby games, not Old Firm games, are won and lost in the midfield battle. We've seen that previously before. Is that another area that's vitally important on the pitch?
Well, Stephen, write this down, because I agree with you.
Oh my days! Oh my days!
Actually, that's what I was going to touch on. The midfield battle.
What was that?
For 99% of derbies are won and lost in the middle of the park. Scott Brown will be massive. In a one-off game, like it's going to be on Sunday, he's still up for the fight. In a one-off game, he can still affect the game. Over the course of a season, it's a different story. But the midfield is key. Brown he's the fighter, and I don't think that is Jack fit.
No,
I'm not sure, mate,
Jack's
I don't
not fit.
know.
No, right. See, that's going to be key, right? Because he's like I know Kamara's a bit of a fighter as well. They're up for the fight, but Brown, if he's not got Jack to deal with, and I don't know if Arfield will play, but Brown has got a chance of winning that midfield battle. And McGregor, I know McGregor's he's more of a footballer, but for me, the midfield battle is absolutely key. And if Brown can do what he does best and fight and be strong, and we've got the willing runners, the Elyounoussi and Forrest either side of him, to give him, like when he wins the ball back, to give him an out ball, a pass, and then it allows, if he gets it wide to them quick, it allows your McGregor and your Turnbull to go into pockets and then pick up the ball and affect the game in the final third. So for me, the midfield battle is the most key area. I know defence is massive, and we'll probably need Ben to have a good game, and also we need Al McGregor to basically have an okay game and just didn't be throwing his cell about making worldies all day, because that's just we can't hear that. He needs to have just a normal game one day against us.
Yeah. I mean, another thing as well, touching upon the battle side of things, I think Edward for me needs to occupy the two centre backs, whether it be Gozen or Hollander, mainly because we touched upon about the Livingston game. Midfielders were actually breaking lines and making runs into the spaces that were left if players were dragging people out of position. Now, I'll go to yourself, Francis. Do you think for this game to go in our favour, I hate talking like this because we should be wiping them off the park every time we play them, but unfortunately that's the kind of times we're in at the moment anyway. But do you think it's vitally important that Eddie actually turns up and gives us a shift?
Oh, 100%. I think he's got to, but I think he will, because he's a bit like Dembele. It's just once the cameras are there, Eddie turns up, although he's not been great this season. But I think he will, and I think if he puts more Elyounoussi up there with him, I think the two of them in the previous game at Parkhead a lot kind of fizzled out. The two of them occupied the two Rangers centre halves, and the Rangers defence didn't really know how to deal with the two of them. So I'm hoping a wee bit we will play the diamond to an extent, so it allows Elyounoussi to play in that more advanced role centrally, and it kind of Golson and Hollander, whoever it is, they don't know how to. They've got to pick up one each. Whereas if Eddie's up there his cell, one can sort of sit off and one can kind of pick up Edward. And if Edward's not like he's been the majority of the season, can't be arsed. It's got to be just a walk in the park for the two. So it has got to be a big battle. And hopefully we dominate the midfield enough that it allows Elyounoussi to get up there, and even if Forrest is fit, and Forrest can obviously get up there, and we can maybe come a wee bit narrow, but also go wide, and it drags our defence into positions they don't want to be in.
Yeah, I mean, as well, in terms of where they're coming from, just again a different angle from this. I've got on here, they have the likes of Hadji, Alfredo, Kent, Davis, Kamara, Rebo. That's the predicted lineup I've gone with. But I think, as Anthony rightly said, we'll end on this point anyway. You need to battle on the pitch. I got vibes of Mel Gibson in the Braveheart film when he was sitting shouting,
worst Scottish accent ever.
Freedom!
But see, like to touch on Hadji, like with that, but like I think if you rattle Hadji first 10 minutes, he's not interested after that. I don't get the hype out of this boy. Don't get it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like I think it's just as Anthony said as well. It's just important that we fight in the pitch, we make ourselves known, and we actually bring it to them, and hopefully get a result. And also, if anyone's looking at any coach, if anyone's looking at any coaches, I mean, we did amazing there. I thought key battles and stuff, tactics, talking. So anyone look,
I think this is going to be on the coach's voice the next subscription.
I'm
100%.
getting a Sky Sports slot just shortly, by the way.
Get us on video and I'll get the Sabutio out. I'll show you the tactics.
Don't say video in front of John, please. But yeah, I think it was a cracking thing to do, the key battle thing. But we'll move on to the score predictions. John, I'll come to yourself first. What have you gone for?
2-0.
2-0.
William?
Yep.
3-0 for
Celtic.
me.
Anthony?
I'm going to put my chips in the oven and say 3-1 Celtic.
Ooh, conservative. Ross?
Not 14-6. I'm going to go with 2-0 Celtic.
Francis?
I've went, 2-1 Celtic.
2-1. That's what I was going for.
Mm.
And just to go to you, John, again, your goal scorer predictions?
I think Eddie and Moy.
William?
Yeah, I've got Elyounoussi to score 2 and Eddie to score 1. Get your wages on it.
Anthony?
Eddie's going to turn up. Elyounoussi, and it's his last dance at Ibrox, so I'm going for a wee one for Scott Brown as well.
Oh, love it.
Oh, wouldn't that be
Ross?
lovely?
I've went with Elyounoussi and Forrest, but if Forrest doesn't start, it'll still be 2-0, and Edward will get it.
Francis, what about yourself?
Well, I went Elyounoussi and Forrest as well, and just to be like Ross, I'll go with Eddie as well if Forrest doesn't start.
Copycat.
I've went for Eddie to get 1 and Forrest to get 1. But yeah, guys, that's a fantastic way to end that segment. So what we're going to do now, we're going to move on to a bit of Scully's Cup nostalgia. This caused a bit of a stir in our group chat earlier on when I mentioned this. So what I'm saying is, sort of a favourite cup or a memory that you have in the cup. It actually doesn't have to be to do with Celtic, if you know what I mean, because John made a brilliant point in the podcast on Tuesday. He was on about the Hibs victory, and I mean, we all remember the scenes after that game and the song they were singing and the goals, especially the last minute goal to win the cup. But I'll go to yourself, Francis, first. What memory sticks out for yourself or game?
For me, it's Celtic 2, Dundee United 1 at Parkhead in 95-96. I can just remember being at the game with my dad, and it was just Dundee United had scored. And it seemed like it was going to be one of the games where we're never going to score and stuff. The big Pierre, just a cross ball over, sticks the header away. Celtic Park just absolutely erupted. It was only minutes. I think it was the 87th minute he scored in. So there wasn't much time left in the game. So every fan's like buzzing because we thought, we've got a replay. And then nobody really realised. And we sort of, obviously the way the fans been watching the game up at the other end and stuff, it was the next thing you know, Andres Tom's bearing down in goal. And he unleashes a shot that absolutely bursts the net, nearly knocked the temporary stand down. And Celtic Park just erupted again and stuff. It was, for me, that's one. And the fact that was there with my dad as well, it was just one of the best Scottish Cup memories I've got.
Brilliant.
Unbelievable. I mean, it actually is. You always explain things and actually vision it happening, and it's pretty amazing. What about yourself, Ross?
Well, it's that exact game. Wow. After all that, earlier on the day, he's covered the same game. Similar to Franny, I mean, it was a brilliant game. Celtic, they totally dominated the game, and Ali Maxwell was in very good form. Dundee United, I think they won a penalty in about half an hour, and Brewster won it. Owen Coyle. Well, first of all, God only knows how Marshall stayed on the park conceding the penalty. But anyway, we don't want to talk about that. But I mean, Owen Coyle, he scored the penalty. In fact, he didn't. Marshall saved it and he scored the rebound. But you're hanging below Ireland for half an hour, and then we basically after that peppered their goal. Dundee United had moments ourselves, but then obviously Franny, what he's touched on, Pierre done what he done. Jackie McNamara won a free kick out in the right, and he put it in for Pierre to score the header 6 yards. And then obviously Andy Tom, like he's touched on, Jackie McNamara actually won the sliding tackle in the Midley Park that put him through. And as Franny's touched on, the stadium went nuts. But I always remember I was watching that, and my pals, Dave Conley's, we shout out to him. He better be an avid listener by now, by the way. But
Hi, Dave.
I was in his house watching it, and in 80 minutes, him and his brother went back out, and they got bored. They were like, we're never going to score. They went back out and started playing football because they were a lot better than me. I decided to stay, and when Pierre scored, sort of ran out and said, "Oh, we've equalised or whatever." And they were like, "All right, we'll get the replay." And then next minute, I'm out on the street, running about the street, jumping about. There was 2-1, fucking 2-1. They're like, "No way, you're at it or whatever." But I mean, it always sticks in my memory, that game, because, like, I mean, we got that win. It looked like we were going out, and that gave us the springboard to go on and basically win our first trophy in seven or 8 years. And it was Burns's first one as well as the Celtic manager. And to complete the firsts, it was the first one that I can properly remember. So they 3 minutes, getting the 2 goals, for me, will always stick in my memory. I'll never forget
100%.
that. And it just allowed us to win that Scottish Cup, and Big Pierre to do that towering header again against Deirdre in the fight. For like, although it was momentous in the fact that it was 2 quick goals for nowhere, it was more momentous for me because it allowed us to do what we done after that.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. Well, it's quite reminiscent of the spin-off you done, the Nopes 11, when John and that were getting the exact same answers. Ross and Francis. But
FaceTiming in the bath earlier.
I was nearly
I'll go to yourself.
Started covering it.
I'll go to yourself, John. I know you picked one, the Hibs game, but is there any other one that sticks out in memory?
No, if you remember the other game, and I know it's like the one most people are going to go to, but sealing that Invincible season, and it just the magnitude of what we achieved that year, sealing that treble, doing it without any defeats in all competitions, just the manner that we scored that goal. And like I say, I distinctly remember because I was down in Cornwall. I was visiting my mate Reese, he's not really a football fan. He grew up kind of supporting Leeds at a younger age, so he didn't really understand the magnitude of it. But I watched it. I stood in front of I practically stood in front of his TV for the entire game. He just wasn't getting it. I was trying to explain it to him what was happening. He just wasn't interested. But I remember then, like after Rogic scored, I ran outside and it was pissing me rain, and I was just running about in my Celtic top, just fucking screaming. Sorry about the language, but I was just screaming, and just must have been funny for their neighbours as well, because they've just been looking at their window and seeing some Scottish boy screaming, rolling at the sky in the rain, running about the streets. But I just, it was just a fantastic memory, and it was one of the ones that, like, there with the Dundee United game, is just, it sticks with me because, like I said, it's just the magnitude of what we achieved.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite an image of you running about in the piss and rain, shouting and screaming in the middle of some place you don't even know. That's class.
It was rural Cornwall, like some Scottish boy howling at the skies with a Celtic top on in the piss and rain.
If anyone remembers that, please let us know. What about yourself, William?
Yeah, mine's is. I'm not even bothered that John's jumped in because I think it's many people's. I've got to say, my very first Scottish Cup memory was the 95 final where McKinley floated in that ball and Big Pierre was up like a salmon. But yeah, my favourite memory's got to be Tom Rogic scoring that winner in the 92nd minute, and just that image of him running in the rain, pulling his shirt almost off himself like Hulk Hogan did, celebrating the fans, and again it all comes back to where you were and what you were doing. And like I was actually with Tony. There was a load of us got through the train and we went to Malone's in Glasgow, And
Love that
I
place.
remember
Big shout out to Malone's. Love that place.
brilliant. And there was a load of us went through in the train early doors, so we were pretty half cut before the game even kicked off. But I remember the bit of an eerie silence when Aberdeen went ahead, and then Armstrong scored that goal, and then we were all like, everybody's just, it was so tense. And then when Rogic scored, I've never felt euphoria like that. We were all cuddling, screaming, greeting, singing. The whole night was just what an unbelievable experience, and what an achievement for the team. When the goal went in, I was celebrating. I was in Malone's in Glasgow. I think when it finished, I was in Edinburgh at some point, just dancing away as well, because it was just, honestly, you didn't know. I was cuddling my dad 1 minute, Tony the next, and then some random boy about 50 yards from me when I first started celebrating. It was just, like I say, the euphoria. And I went through lots of memories, and there's been so many unbelievable memories as a Celtic fan in this wonderful cup and this wonderful trophy. But I don't think there's any that can beat that.
Yeah.
To be
What
fair,
about your...
Sorry to jump in, but to be fair, when Edward scored the second against Hearts, that was a pretty...
Oh, Ross, I
That
want
was-
to be special mention like that, because me and you were at it together.
I know, that's what I just, it popped into my head there. That was an unbelievable feeling to be in the stadium at the time when, what was that? It was the quad, the treble.
Treble.
I mean, that's sit back and
Laugh
think
up, man.
what the hell we actually done.
I know.
That's-
But again, doing it the Celtic way. We're not winning comfortably 5-0. We're like, oh my god, what are we doing here? This is
Actually, come back for 1-0 down in that game as well.
yeah. Again, aye.
Another shot, man.
Was this after you and Ross had that bath together?
Aye, pre-match bath.
What about yourself, Anthony? What have you went for?
Man, some great memories there. Just thinking back, I think I've just about sobered up for that treble day, honestly. But like the boys say, Stephen, I'm the exact same. I unashamedly love the Scottish Cup. It's one of my favourite footballing tournaments, and I think it's a beautiful trophy as well. Actually, when you look at it, there's so many great memories. I'm going to go for. I'm bringing it right up to date, and it's purely through a family thing. I'm going to go for. When the day we won the quadruple treble, because on the park, like I mean, apart from fans, apart from supporters, everything else about that game was unbelievable. It was, an incredible game. 3-3 after extra time, then penalties. It had every bit of drama you could ever hope for, but thankfully. We were behind in the shootout and clawed it back to win the match. But about 20 odd years ago, my dad, who's not a drinker, by the way, got as a present this Elector's Celtic whiskey. And as I say, as a non-drinker, it just kind of looked the part on the drinks cabinet for all these years. And, it just we'd never opened it. He did say if we'd won the night of Seville, he maybe would have opened it. But needless to say, it didn't get opened that night. But and this is why I've picked this memory, because touching wood, this will be the last time that this opportunity can ever happen. We'll never need to have a cup final in December again. But God rest her, my wee granny passed away last year in the summer, and her birthday is actually December 21st, which, as you'll know, was the day after the cup final last year. We played the cup final on December 20th, and we'd I kind of half mentioned it to him after the Aberdeen game when we won in the semi-final. I says, tell you what, Dad, I was like, if we win the quadruple treble, day before Granny's birthday, we got to crack open that whiskey, didn't we? And he sort of says, oh aye, definitely, but we never really said any more about it. And then obviously you can remember the sort of day, all the drama and emotions of that day. You were like, at one point it looked like we'd blown it, and then after all the celebrations and all the madness, everything had died down, and after we drank everything else in the house, and it was about, God, it must have been about maybe 9 o'clock at night or something like that. My dad just went, right, are we going to open that whiskey then? And it was like, oh, brilliant. We totally forgot about it. And so yeah, that 25-year-old bottle of whiskey finally got opened, and we raised a wee glass to wee Granny in the quadruple treble. So as I say, I've got a million memories to choose for, but just for that wee reason alone, I'm picking the most recent final. And not only that, the fact it was our 40th Scottish Cup, and it was we became the first side to win it 4 times in a row. So you can't ask for any more than that, can you?
No.
I mean, you've just done it again. You've just done it again. You've done the same, the extravaganza.
By the way, can I just say,
My cheek.
Sorry, Ross.
I'm just wiping my tear off my cheek.
see also though, was the first 3 trebles good enough to open a whiskey?
Yeah, but as you can remember, for the first Invincible treble especially, son, I couldn't hold my own.
That's
one.
true.
No, I was
True,
saying 5e at one point, mate.
Well, he's wondering how he's
And
missed
the
it. Some whiskey
treble.
there.
And the
I
treble
think
too.
you
Mental.
done it again, Anthony. You brought it back to what it means to everybody. It's family. It's the club we love. And even though there was no supporters in the stadium, you still get that feeling when you watch the Celtic play. And you rightly alluded to it as well. It wasn't a Celtic way. They weren't winning comfortably. They made us wait and made us hold on. And as you said, I mean, them types of moments, it's stuff you'll never forget. And that wee moment you had with your dad is something will always stay with you forever. The whiskey getting opened, you can actually just imagine the scene. It's what you do well, Anthony. You paint the portrait, definitely. But what I thought outside the box when I said it didn't have to be a game as Celtic were involved with, I truly meant that, because I think, Anthony, as well, you said the Scottish Cup. The Scottish Cup is a cup we all love, and I'm one for fairy tales and for a bit of the underdog. And I went for a game. Do you remember Gretna? They got to the final.
Oh yeah.
That sticks out in my mind only because of the fairy tale about it. They came from the lower leagues. They went up to the Scottish Cup. They took Hearts all the way to extra time, and unfortunately, they lost it on penalty kicks. But it's them type of moments that make a cup competition. I'm sure you'll agree, boys. You need that type of moment. It makes the cup special, and it's what you look forward to every year. And yes, we want Celtic win it every year and every year possible. But for me, the Gretna one, I'm not saying it's my favourite game by all means. I mean, the favourite games involve Celtic, but I wanted to think a wee bit outside the box. And if you compare and contrast the squads they're up against, I mean, it was a fantastic run it went on, and it went all the way to the final, and it lost in penalties. But again, it points to the fairy tale element of the Scottish Cup. And unfortunately, yes, Gretna's out of business, but that's something I think every Scottish football fan remembers. I mean, I think you all agree with that anyway.
The doctor.
But yeah, guys. I mean, in terms of the show, we've covered everything. We even into a wee bit of a rant about the youth, which was brilliant, and we're all passionate about that. But before we end the podcast, I want to draw the listeners' attention. We've recently started a special guest spin-off series, and at the moment, we've had David Webb on it, a contender, and still is a contender for the Celtic Director of Football job, who's previously worked with Eddie Howe. That's on the podcast, so if you just want to check that out. We've also had a young Irish boy called Patrick McNally, who got his move to Celtic from Cliftonville Football Club at the young age of 17. He talks about the pressures of Celtic and what he went through to earn his chance as pro contract to step up in standards. And we also have a new interview coming out pretty soon with John Herron. Now, John Herron came through the Celtic Youth Academy all the way from 9 years old, right up to the first team, made his debut under Neil Lennon, and subsequently made 22 appearances for Celtic. Unfortunately, injury cut his stay at Celtic short, but he tells us some fantastic stories within the Youth Academy. And we also have a nice wee mention for Tommy Burns during that as well. He talks about how special Tommy Burns was, how he came to his house, and there's also funny stories in that. So keep an eye out for that. That will be out next week at some point. And also as well, a shout out to Anthony and William, who've hosted their own spin-off series. William recently took control and took host of the Nopes 11, which is just a light-hearted, more like a joke, and about the worst Celtic players that we've seen in our lifetime. Again, check that out if you get a chance. And Anthony done a show of the 21st Century Boys, basically a combined 11 with the best players from we remember as well. So it's kind of a compare and contrast, and it's a fantastic show. They both did a really good job. And guys, thanks for coming on again. This has been our Scottish Cup special. Have you all enjoyed it?
100%.
Mate.
Absolutely brilliant, mate. Can't wait for Sunday now.
Yeah. It's a good way to build up the weekend. And again, until Tuesday, until the regular podcast, we'll be all back on again. Stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.